We're going to talk about how to take a path and convert it to a selection. So in Photoshop, there is also the pen tool, and this will create vector paths. And you'll notice that it has the same tools that you find in Illustrator. And so those should be familiar to you. And you'll notice in the Paths palette, so I'm going to just highlight that. As soon as we start drawing a path, it will create what they call a work path. And what's great about the pen tool, so if I just click and drag, it will give the Bezier curves. You can see I can draw these, your typical paths. And by doing so, you have the best of both worlds in terms of drawing straight lines as well as curves. And so the advantage that we have with that is that we can do both real quick. The other advantage that we have is if I zoom in on this, you'll notice that with the path, I didn't get this end very good, probably because I drew it further away. I needed to zoom in to do that more accurately, but what's great is I can make adjustments later. So I'm going to use my direct selection tool, and I can go in here and select a particular path, one of the endpoints, and move those. We can also grab the Bezier curve arms and adjust those as needed if I need to change the curve of the line. You can see that this one may need a little bit of adjustment. So you can kind of tighten things up or move them out. And it looks like that works okay right here, but we may have some issues on the other end on this one here. And really what it's doing is we need to extend this Bezier arm to match that curve a little bit more. So you have that advantage of being able to go back and adjust your selection. And gives you a lot of control over all the different areas of their selection. And then that shows up as a work path. We can turn that work path off simply by deselecting it by clicking in the gray area of the Paths palette. We can select it there. We can rename it, which also works too if you wanted to save those. But let's talk about converting it to a selection. So you'll notice with it selected in the Paths palette, near the bottom I have a load path as selection, stroke path with brush, fill path with foreground color, add a mask. This is the one I want to do, is load the path as a selection. So as I click it, it immediately turns that into a marching ants. And you'll notice that what's happened here is it's selected everything outside of the sign. So if I were to do a quick levels adjustment, you'll notice it's selecting the sky and everything but the sign, meaning that the sign is isolated. We can change the inverse of the sign, or the selection, excuse me. So if you go to select, Command-Shift-I will invert the selection. So you can go back and forth. So in some cases it might be easier to select the outside of an object versus the inside. And that's how we select the inverse, is Command-Shift-I or select inverse. So that's another little tip.